Yo, what's going on? It's your boy Kenny T. So we back with episode 2 of ACA review with KT. We're gonna cover the next sections. The first few sections, we got area operations sections A, B, C. So let's start with pilot qualifications. How we gonna look at it and what's expected of you in this section. So as with everything, you're starting with the references that are there. And most of the references that are going to be in most of these are going to be the PHAC, the Airplane Flying Handbook, Risk Management, and the FAR. So that's almost the references for all. Pilot qualifications, it is meant to determine the applicant's ability to exhibit satisfactory knowledge, risk management and skills associated with medical certificate, including privileges, limitations, currency, and operating as PIC. The knowledge that's expected in this area that it's expected to know is your certification requirements, recency, flight experience, record keeping. That's K1. And the way they're going to do that is you're going to show the DPE your medical certificate. And it's going to ask questions like, all right, when does it expire? If you have a class 1 or class 3, what the differences are. How long do they last? Your recency of flight experience. What's required as a private pilot for recency? Do you know the answer to that? Do you know what a record keeper? This is your logbook. Do you have your logbook? Is it annotated correctly? Have you kept your flights tracked correctly? Do you have the proper endorsements in your logbook for your check ride? By being able to have that, understand it, be able to explain it is going to show your ability to have the required knowledge to be able to say, yeah, you have the proper knowledge. If you don't understand it or don't know it, you don't got it. What are the privileges and your limitations as a private pilot? Can you take money? Can you fly your friends? Maybe not as a student pilot, but as a private pilot, you can. We talked about the medical certificate classes. Temporary disqualifications. What's that? So temporary disqualification, let's say you're sick or you're taking medication. How do you figure out what medication is disqualifying and how long do you have to stay off a certain medication? That's going to be in the FAA has a document that actually shows the list of medications that you can and cannot take and how they can affect you. So that's something you need to know. If you don't know it, I'll pop that in there so you can see what it looks like. And documents required to exercise your private pilot privilege. Well, what do you need? Driver's license and your certificate and your medical. What suffices as identification. You have to know that because you got to demonstrate it. You got to show them or her that you got all that stuff. You explain what you have and basic med privileges and limitations, especially if you are on base med. If you're not basic med, you still got to know it, but if you're going to be using basic, something you want to make sure that you understand. Understanding that's the knowledge portion. So risk management. So proficiency versus currency. What is proficiency versus currency? Currency means I meet the requirements for my takeoff and landings that I need. Proficiency means I'm actually capable and comfortable and able to fly the plane. Just because you're current doesn't mean that you are safe. If you're flying unfamiliar aircraft or operating unfamiliar flight space, so even though you'll have your private pilot certificate, if you're flying a plane that you haven't flown, you may be legal to fly, but it's a good idea to fly an airplane that you're not really familiar with, you don't have a lot of experience, or you don't really understand the avionics suite that's in there. The answer is no, you probably want to get some either training or fly with somebody and get better knowledge of it before you get in the plane. And that's testing your risk management, the skill to demonstrate your pilot quality. Evaluator might give you a scenario. That might be something similar to what I just said, that you haven't, let's say you haven't flown for 6 months and you want to go fly with one of your friends or fly your parents or fly somebody. Well, you're going to go get your 3 bounces and you're going like, oh, I haven't flown for 6 months, but I can still legally go fly. Is it a good idea to go hop in a plane and fly to do the 3 takeoff and landing? Even if you can do it by yourself. Is it a good idea? Should you do it? That's something you got to be able to ask yourself. I got the skill to do it, and does it make sense? Well, that would be still more risk mitigation. That's pilot qualifications. That's task. And ultimately, that's, am I eligible and can I be a pilot? Do I have the qualifications? Next, your airworthy requirements. So the airworthy requirements previous one has to do with you being a pilot. This has to do with, is the airplane airworthy? Take a look. What are the things you're going to look for? Or what are the things that you got to know? And these are things that I'll tell you, before I get into this, airworthy requirements, this is something that you need to sit down with the maintainer or somebody who works on the airplanes that go through all the logs and the paperwork. So not only do you understand what the requirements are, and you can, shout out arrows, tomato flames, and aviate, but actually being able to show that you know where it's at and how to actually display, like, hey, not only know this stuff, but I can show you in the books and the log that this airplane is airworthy and ready to go. So let's see, we got location, expiration date of the certificates. That's right there. Do you know where the stuff's at? Can you show it? Like I said, you can spit off all the acronyms all day, but show me you know how to do it. Show me you know where it's at. The inspections. Where are the inspections? Show me the logbook. The ADs. How do you pull those up? If you can't pull these up and you don't know where these are, then you're not ready. You got to be able to show and demonstrate. How to get a special flight permit. What scenario would you use a special flight? Pilot command responsibilities. Equipment required for day and night. Tomato flames, and what does that mean? I tell people, if you can say tomato flames in the airplane and point at the different instruments, you have probably a good idea. If you can just say tomato flames, you can say it, but you don't really know really what those things are. Flying with inoperative equipment, when a item is inoperative, when you can placard it, and who is required to placard it, depending on what it is, and how you document that. Know how to do that. Do you have an MEL? You may not have an MEL if you're flying a 172, but depending on other aircraft, you could have. And those are the knowledge, being able to understand and know how to deal with it. Risk management is actually figuring out you have a piece of equipment that is malfunctioning. So if you have a heading indicator that is inoperative, should you do? Question you got to be able to answer. Something as simple as that. What's the procedure to be able to still go fly even if it doesn't work, if it's not part of a tomato flame? And then demonstrating the skill. The skill is kind of like all of these things when you actually work through the ACS and work and actually go through the steps of preparing to get ready to go fly. While you're talking about the knowledge, you should also be demonstrating the skill. Just like in this case, locate and describe the airplane's airworthiness registration info. It's kind of like I talked about. If you can pull it out and show where it's at, you're demonstrating the skill that you can do it. Determine the airplane is airworthy in this scenario given by the instructor. Apply the procedures for operating with the inoperative equipment in the scenario given by the evaluator. That's like what I just said, right? So I'm not making this up. It's all right here in the ACS. If you follow these different categories within the tag, and you're able to, with a high degree of certainty, to know what to do, how to do it, and talk, then you're probably good. But that's also what you and your instructor are going to go through before you actually go take your check ride. So by the time you get to your check ride, this is easy. It's too easy. That's what it should be. It should be easy. I mean, your nerves are still going to kick in, but it should be easy in the sense of you should know the information. I mean, no one expects you to be perfect, but just know that, yeah, you should know this. All right, next section is weather. If the evaluator chooses K2 or K3, which is knowledge area 2 or 3, they have the different subsets, and they're going to expect you to at least demonstrate 3 of the sub-elements in the area. The objective of this section is to determine can exhibit satisfactory knowledge, risk management, and skills to fly under VFR. I'll say that, so we look at knowledge information number 1, right? So the source of weather data, so the National Weather Service, Flight Service, for flight planning purposes. You gotta be able to know where to get the weather information before you even talk about it, right? Know where to get it. If you're using an electronic flight bag, know where the information comes from and know how to pull the information up to get the data so that you can use it. Knowledge area 2, it's everything from the METAR, surface analysis charts, the TAF, the winds aloft charts, convective. Okay, when you look at this stuff here, although a lot of stuff shows you the encoded information for the TAF, the METAR, etc., you want to be able to know how to do it when it's not encoded, because the evaluators want to know that you understand and know how to decode the information. If you can read the weather that you're going to use, because they're going to give you a scenario, right? A cross-country plane scenario. You're going to have to look at the weather, the METAR, the TAF, and all the other different charts. If you can understand that stuff before you even show up, when you get there, it should be something that you can do if he gives you, or he or she gives you information and says, hey, decode this information or tell me what the weather looks like in this area, you should be able to do that. And the way I tell people is, don't just look at the weather where you're at, look at the weather somewhere else, and if you can decode it there, then you're probably pretty good with understanding to be able to decode the weather and be able to demonstrate your ability and knowledge. We go to knowledge section 3, and there's more being able to understand weather theory. Can you talk about how wind affects flying? Can you talk about how the temperature and heat exchange? You know, what causes most weather? How does moisture and precipitation happen? Clouds, turbulence. Be able to talk about these things and understand with a certain level of knowledge, be able to kind of explain these things. And you don't got to be a weather person, and you don't got to be an expert. You can talk to somebody and they know, okay, got it. You understand. You're not a weatherman, but you have a good idea of what the different weather does, right? Next part of this, which is risk management. Can you identify, assess, mitigate the risks associated with a go-no decision when it comes to the different weather that you're going to deal with? So what circumstances would make diversion prudent? Like, when would you decide that you might divert on your, say if it's getting to below VFR minimums, or if there's thunderstorm activity or something that you're not comfortable with, but being able to kind of articulate what you would do. And just because it is VFR doesn't mean that you have to do it, right? You want to make sure that you have your own personal minimums when it's in regard to what you're going to fly with. Just because you can fly somewhere, it's like, what are you comfortable with? And that's something that you want to set and be able to explain to your evaluator when you get ready to take your check. That goes into risk management. Hazard weather conditions, so known or unknown, if it's unknown, known forecasts of icing or turbulence loss. How are you going to deal with that when you see it in the weather? How are you going to mitigate that risk? And the use of weather programs or weather equipment that you have on your aircraft. What do you have access to when aviation weather reports and forecasts? So you can talk with ATC, you can pull up the information on your iPad, but understand what the limitations of those are so that when you're making your decision, you understand that not everything is perfect. Some things have delays, and some things just don't work, and some things are just not accurate. But know the level of which it is and how you put that into your calculus for making your decision. And then we look at this skills section. So in the skills section, use the available aviation weather resources to articulate. So with some of this stuff, like I said, if you're talking about you got the knowledge of it and you demonstrate that you can use the knowledge to get the information, you've killed two birds with one stone. And so you'll either get a scenario from your DPE, or they'll use the real weather to have a discussion about the weather. And in all honesty, by doing that, a lot of these different areas and sections in the weather information section are going to be covered when you just go over the weather for the flight. So that might even be covered when you ask, hey, what's the weather look like in our for our flight today, or for your cross country? If you're able to explain that, it will likely cover the majority of this section. They'll throw some other ones in there just to make sure they cover some things that may be some nuances that they want you to make sure you know. But if you go through each one, like I said, go through each one and check it out, and make sure you feel pretty good about it. And then ask yourself, what's going to make you make a go or no go decision? How are you going to determine that? What are the factors that are going to play into that? Well, cool. So that's we'll just did A, B, and C. So that's pilot qualifications, airworthiness requirements, and weather information for this. And as you see, just going through these first few, it's a matter of, if you have the knowledge, usually it rolls right into having the knowledge helps you understand managing the risk. And then by having the knowledge, you've then demonstrated the skill to use that to help you make good decisions and be a good pilot. Line by line, right there, that's what they're going to ask you on the test. That's what we're going to go through. So next time, check it out. We're going to go through the cross-country planning section, kind of highlight that, the airspace section, and performance limitation. All right, there we go. KT out.